Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit about capitalization. We'll also talk about another grammar item. But for now, capitalization. Well, you need to know what abbreviations are. That's, when you take United States and you just take the first letter of each, you can put a period after each one, right? Acronyms, where you take the first letter of each, like Federal Bureau of Investigation, and say SCI, Central Intelligence Agency, United States Forest Service, United Postal Service, United States Postal Service, or it could be parcel here. I don't know. Anyway, those are all capitalized. Okay? Proper nouns are capitalized, like Gerald Ford, because that's a name. Abraham Lincoln, that's a name. Mount Rushmore, it's the name of a national park. I guess it's a park. Utah, it's the name of a state. John, it's somebody's name. Corvette, it's the name of a car. Common nouns, though, are not capitalized, like animals, dog, cat, fish, table, chair. The beginning of a sentence is always capitalized. Hello, right? I am your host for today. Okay, so in case you missed it, those are all the things you need to capitalize and the ones that you don't capitalize. Okay, if it's not the name of something, pretty much it's not going to be capitalized. Okay, we're not going to get into directions, but that's something. Sometimes you capitalize north, sometimes you don't. Okay, if it's, well, I guess I could explain that. If something is north of you, then you don't capitalize it. But if it's a specific, like the there's a street called North Temple in Salt Lake, that would be capitalized because it's a specific name of a street. It's a specific place. If I were to say the North, right, I'm talking about a specific thing. It's like naming the North, talking about like the northern states, or if I were to say the West, then I would capitalize West there because it's like the western states or the South. Okay? And I should add this to my slideshow. All right, so there you go. I live south of here. I live in the West. All right, end marks and commas. So you have to use a comma and a appositive. An appositive is when you restate something that you've already stated. So, for example, the winner of the fight, the last man standing, is Ralph. Okay, so the last man standing refers to the winner of the fight. And since I restated it, I put commas around it. Appositives are not essential for sentences, and how you pick them out is by reading the sentence like this. The winner of the fight is Ralph. If that's a complete sentence, which it is, then I don't really need this, but I can put the commas around it. That's an appositive. Okay. Oh, whoops. You put a comma in front of or behind an introductory word to a sentence. It's kind of like an appositive, but it's always at the beginning of a sentence. Okay? Well, obviously there is a raccoon in the house. Darn, I was hoping to take a nap. I could read those sentences as obviously there is a raccoon in the house, and the sentence would be okay. All right? So that's why you put a comma after it, because you don't really need it. It's an introductory word. I was hoping to take a nap. Sounds just fine without darn. So you put a comma after it. Subordinating clauses. Subordinating clauses have a subordinating conjunction like since, however, therefore, when. Okay? Now, these ones are kind of tricky, but I gave you both examples. When the subordinating clause comes first, you put a comma after that clause. When the subordinating clause comes second, you don't put a comma after it. Okay? Now, that's really tricky. But the way you remember it is if the dependent clause or the thing that doesn't stand by itself, if it's first, then you put a comma after it. Okay, so this is what I mean. Since reading the book on leeches, what? Like, that's not complete. That's not a complete thought. I don't know what happened since you read the book on leeches. I feel anemic, right? Or, to flip it, I feel anemic since reading the book on leeches. Okay? This sentence clarifies or adds meaning to the independent clause, I feel anemic. That's a complete sentence, right? But I add a little more with since reading the book on leeches, right? I could get rid of this. I feel anemic. Oh, why do you feel anemic? Because I read a book on leeches. Okay, and because I read a book on leeches, that is not a complete sentence, but we would probably respond to that. The complete way to respond would be, I feel anemic because I read a book on leeches. Right? And I could say the same thing. Because I read a book on leeches, I feel anemic. So because is another subordinating conjunction. Now, I don't expect you to remember the names of these, but I do expect you to remember where to put the comma and when not to. Okay? Lists. So, most of you know this, but I'm going to review it anyway. Make sure that you bring your head, fingers, and eyes to the Fortnite competition. I like eating my pets and my family. Use commas, don't be a psycho. So imagine that second sentence without commas. That would literally mean that you like to eat pets and to eat your family. Okay? But if you like eating, you like your pets, and you like your family, that's why you use commas. Commas do change the meaning of things. Okay, as that second sentence shows, I like eating my pets and my family. No, you don't. You like each separate thing. You separate with a comma. Okay? The first sentence is more obvious. You're always going to have your head, your fingers, and your eyes, but they're the most essential parts when you're playing a video game, right? Your head, fingers, and your eyes. So you put comma after each item until the conjunction here, and then the last comma goes before the conjunction. Okay, you don't put one after the conjunction. And notice that there's a space after the comma, but not before it. Okay, so that's how we use commas. Now this one is the one that you will use the most in your writing. These are compound sentences. Okay, each one has two independent clauses in it. They're separated by a coordinating conjunction. You'll hear these referred to as fanboys, for and nor, but, or, yet, so. I didn't use all of them, but I used some of them. I went back to school. Okay, that's a complete sentence, so it's an independent clause. I went back to school. It's a complete thought by itself. But everything had changed. Everything had changed. That's a complete sentence. Okay, so notice how I've got a comma and a but here to separate these independent clauses. Okay, again, everyone was wearing masks. Complete sentence, independent clause, because we have a subject and a predicate. Everyone, okay, there's my subject, was wearing masks. There's my predicate. We know what's happening to everyone. Okay? Comma, and they wouldn't touch each other. They wouldn't touch each other. That's a complete sentence. It's got a subject. It's got a predicate. They, well, what about they? They wouldn't touch each other. Okay? So I separate it with a comma, conjunction, and. Okay? Next one. I wanted to go back home. Yes, that's a complete thought. What about you? Wanted to go back home. For the world had gone mad. The world had gone mad. That's a complete thought. The world, there's my subject, had gone mad. I've got a complete thought about the world. Okay, so I'm separating with a conjunction and a comma. I chose to stay. That's a complete thought. What did I do? I chose to stay. Okay? I could maintain my grades. That's a complete thought. I, and then something about I what? I walked the dog. I could maintain, whatever. Now, here's an interesting thing about so. It would sound weird if I said I chose to stay and I could maintain my grades. That changes the meaning. If I wanted, I wouldn't say could. If I didn't use so, I wouldn't say could. If I said I chose to stay and I can maintain my grades, they're not exactly related. Okay, you only really do this when they are related. Because I wanted to maintain my grades, I chose to stay. Right? One leads to another. I use so to indicate a relationship. What did I just do? Okay. Indicate a relationship. I chose to stay. So cause and effect. I believe that if I stay, then I will maintain my grades. But we're not really talking about that word there. So we're talking about the commas. Anyway, it worked out. Yet, I still miss the old days. This shows a contrast. I have a comma in between. It worked out. Yes, that's a complete sentence. I still miss the old days. I could say I miss the old days. You could actually use but in this. It worked out, but I still miss the old days. Yet and but, they both work here. Okay? Alright, so your assignment is going to be to write a sentence and use a comma correctly. Okay? And write a sentence and use capitalization correctly. And use, I didn't get to periods. Okay. Periods, they're the easiest. I mean, if you have a complete sentence and you're not connecting any clauses, you're going to put a period at the end of the sentence. This is a sentence that has a period at the end. Periods appear at the end of a complete sentence. Period. Do your work. That's a command sentence, right? There's an implied you there. Now pretend that the you is not there, right? Do your work. Period. Do you want to know how to use a question mark? It's me asking you, do you want to know this? Right? What's a question mark? Question mark. Let's begin. I'm excited to teach you about question marks and exclamation points. Okay? If you want to show excitement, you use an exclamation point. These are somewhat interchangeable. I mean, you don't use a period in place of a question mark, but the exclamation and the period, they could be interchangeable, arguably. One just shows emotion, the other one doesn't really. Okay, that's it. Okay, here we go. So your assignment is to write a sentence with a period used correctly, a sentence with a question mark used correctly, a sentence with an exclamation mark used correctly, a sentence with a comma used correctly, and so with capitalization used correctly. Now I want you, with the capitalization, I want you to use an acronym and a name. And of course I want you to capitalize the first letter of the sentence. You don't have to worry about this. Okay, but in the same sentence, I want you to write down using an abbreviation and an acronym. Now, I could give you a sentence or you can make up one. It's your choice. You could write, I work for the FBI, which is a U.S. organization. My supervisor's name is John. There you go. There's your sentence. I want you to write it correctly. Good luck.